We'll keep things going. I'm going to introduce Bill DeRosa from Talking Finger Social Media Marketing Creators, and we're going to talk about the 7 keys to a winning social media strategy. All right. Thank you very much.
All right, I'll step this way here. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm usually pretty loud anyway. Great. My business partner's not here. His name is Eric Granado. He's usually my teller to my pen. I'm usually the loudmouth in a company. Interesting development. I actually bought the other half of the company out from my business partner, so I'm the sole owner now, which is great and scary all at the same time. But onward with the show here. We're going to actually be talking about the 7 keys to social media success. Now, a lot of these things are going to be very general to broad scope of businesses. Now, when we're going through these 7 keys, obviously the difference between when we market for Bridgeport Sound Tigers versus some of our clothing manufacturers, B2C to B2B, some of these keys change a little, and the data you collect, the things you're going to do are going to change as well. But this will give you a good broad scope. You're not going to pick up everything I'm going to go through because I got 40-something slides, and usually I speak for like 2 hours, like I said, because I'm a blabbermouth. So I'm going to whip through them quick. Thing to note is that at the end of this is available on SlideShare, on a SlideShare channel. So the entire presentation you'll be able to watch immediately after anyway. So we're going to get into the 7 keys right here. You can read them for yourself. I'm not going to read what's up there. But the important thing, again, to remember is not all these are going to apply to every business. And this is going to be the general scope of what you need to accomplish with your business. And it looks pretty up there, but we'll go on here. All right, so how to create synergy between your social and traditional media. You can no longer have 2 different things anymore. You know, even years ago when social first developed, you had your whole traditional marketing in one silo, and it was all your print, newspaper, trade shows, all these other things, and then you had a whole nother silo that had all the social, and they really weren't working together. You simply can't do that anymore. They cannot live in silos anymore. They're not in separate entities anymore. They have to be connected together. And the idea is the synergy. Now, there's some problems with social media, just like there's problems with traditional marketing. When they work together, they really supplement and augment exactly what the downfalls of each one. You can see trust. You know, Peter earlier spoke about trust. Huge thing. But how many people actually trust what a company's website tells you? It's the company telling you about themselves. Social is other people telling you about the company. Same. How many people here have a Facebook page for their business, for example? How long did it take you to get likes? It takes a long time. And we're not even really going to talk about likes. What we're going to talk about is qualified likes. Because I'll give you a little hint. Likes are meaningless. Follows are meaningless. Peter hit it right on the head earlier, and we were talking about that. All these numbers and all these big numbers everybody wants, all these Twitter followers and Instagram followers and all these other things, they're meaningless numbers. If it doesn't turn into ROI or it doesn't turn into engaged users who are going to share your content, who are going to engage with your content, and hopefully in the end buy something from you, the numbers don't mean anything. We're going to get into analytics a little later. So, you know, you can read for yourself all the different pieces right here. So the idea is balance. You want to have balance between the different medium, okay? If you only use social, I'll tell you right now, unless it's there's certain specific companies that we work with who live on social. They don't even have a website. They don't use any email. They live strictly on social. And they're very B2C companies that are really easy, like t-shirt sales, things like that, can live on social. B2B cannot live on social. It's an augment, it's a supplement to what you're doing, but B2B has a tough time with social, for example. But in general, if you only use one and not the other, you're probably going to lose market share to your competitors who are embracing both and doing them both well. All right, so how do you start integrating some stuff? Well, I'll start out with the traditional. You know, people still do print. You know, I have nothing against print. It still works. There's still, no matter what, there's a part of society that's always going to want a newspaper, always going to want a magazine. Is it dying? I mean, yeah, I think it's dying. But, you know, there'll be people out here who are in print who are going to hate me for that. But it kind of is dying. I mean, I don't know any 22-year-old who picks up a newspaper anymore. It just doesn't happen. I got 2 teen daughters. They don't even know what a newspaper is. They get everything from Facebook, Twitter, all these different methods of where the news is coming to them. People aren't searching for the news anymore. It actually comes into them based on what they want to hear about. So this is just a general thing. Add social icons to anything you print. I don't care what it is. Add your social icons. Even to your business cards. I get business cards from people so often, and they hand me it, and it has their email address and their house address, whatever address for the company, and their phone number. I know they have a Facebook. I know they have a Twitter. I know they have a YouTube channel. It's not even listed on their business card. These things, you can imagine them almost sometimes like websites a little. You still have to notify people about your social network. So make sure it's on your business cards. And business cards are cheap enough to print on both sides. I mean, come on. This is a big mistake. I see so many people put up, find us on Facebook. How many people have used the Facebook search? How many people have actually found what they were looking for in Facebook search? It doesn't happen. Same thing with a lot of times at YouTube and stuff. You want to make sure that you have an icon/address. So whether it's YouTube, Twitter, or anything else, you should use the icon / and then the address. Don't just put find us on Twitter, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, all those stuff. Give them the actual address they need to go to. Okay, your website. Obviously, most websites these days do have a link from back and forth. Any web person knows the SEO benefits of having outbound links and everything else. All this stuff, if it's done the right way, it does help with search and all this other stuff. Just make sure you have people the ability that they can simply click somewhere to go. Make it simple. People, 2.7 seconds the attention span. Well, make sure that within that 2 seconds you can find somewhere. Same thing with email, and actually that's from Eric up there, which he's not here anymore, but. Even in your email address, same thing. Make sure that you give people places and easy ways to click from point A to point B to go to your different social networks. Okay, so that's basically the tie-in between those two. How to pick the right social network. The funny thing is, a lot of our clients come to us in the beginning and they go, we want to be on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Okay, that's great. Why? Oh, well, they're the biggest ones. That's fantastic. They're the biggest ones. Is that where your audience is? You have to go where your audience is. So picking the right social network just because you want to be on Facebook doesn't mean it's going to work for you. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through basically 4 different parameters. This is basically how you determine, more or less, and again, this is very broad scope, but it'll give you an idea of what the methodology is here, is how do you find out which social network you're going to be on? This also will help with a lot of the others of the 7 keys I'm going to be going over with. But you want to start defining your target audience. Who is your target audience? Again, this is very vanilla. This is very generic. B2B companies versus other ones are going to have different parameters, but you have to know your audience. You have to know some of the things they're into, some of the things they would talk about, stuff like that. Second thing is, what are your goals with social? The bottom one right here, increased profits are not a goal. When people say, I want to make more money with my social or even my website or anything else like that, any marketing, advertising, the end goal is not to make more money. The increased profits is a result of goal setting. You set your goals and then the profits result. The profit itself is not the goal per se. But what are your goals? All different companies are going to have different reasons for why they want to be on social. B2B a lot of times is going to be more towards the building advocacy, thought leader, things like that. More so to B2C, which B2C you can use a little bit more to drive sales, actual hard dollars. B2B is a little more difficult to actually get dollars out of. So that's the goals. And then very important, how much time can you invest in internally? And we also say externally because you can hire content writers and all these other things right here. But how much time? Social media, I'm 20 plus years in advertising and marketing. You can waste the most time of your company's expenditures on social media and get absolutely no results. But it's very important to nail down exactly how much time you can spend. And the reason for this is, if you come to me and you say, we can devote 2 hours per week on social media, and you want to be on 4 different social networks, it ain't going to happen. Because you simply do not have time to be on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and all these other ones if you've got 2 hours per week. So knowing how much time you can actually devote internally, and if you have to hire externally, is critically important to understand which social networks and how many to be on. I forgot what this one is. Oh, okay. Forget my own slides. What other marketing initiatives are in place? Again, we're going to go back to synergy. You need to tie in. You should really be listing everything that you own out there. Any way that you communicate or get your message out to the public, your consumers, and everything else, you need to know what all those pieces are. And again, because it's synergy, because we're going to want to start tying in what you're doing traditionally and everything else out there with the social and vice versa. They need to complement each other. So these are the things we've kind of to define. besides helping create a strategy, which we will get into actually there, this actually helps determine which social networks you're going to be on. Those parameters up there are going to judge which ones you'll be on. And I'll give you an example. And again, this is very generic and very vanilla, and you can Google and you can search and actually find harder parameters. There's a lot of studies on what the actual audience is on all the different social networks. I think Pew actually did a really good one. It broke down the demographics to every single little bit of information you would ever need about each social. But in general, these are the breakdowns. So, if you're in your beginnings over there, if you found out that you really need to market to women per se, well, then you probably should be on Pinterest. You should probably be on some of these different platforms where the majority of the people on there are women. That number actually went down a little for Pinterest. I think it's down to like 68. All the men are jumping on now and sharing recipes and stuff there. So. But, basically, it's fun. I love Pinterest. I'm on it all the time. But basically, the idea of which social channels you need to be on is really driven by the audience there. And it's really important. Social is no longer just flim-flam. You don't just get on things. You really have to know where your audience is. And targeted social is where it's at. Or else, like I said earlier, you are going to waste a lot of time of social if you don't start narrowing down where you have conversations. All right, so how to plan and execute a results-driven social media campaign. And I hate using the word campaign, but it's the only word I can really use here and it makes sense up there. Social media is really not a campaign. It's a relationship, and you have to kind of keep that in mind as well. But I use campaign because I like to do things that are stupid. Okay, so, it takes time. It's what you do with that time that determines whether it's success or failure, basically. It's not a marathon. It's a sprint. If you're going to come to me and you say, we want to create a Facebook page and a Twitter because we need X amount of sales, we need X amount of stuff by next month, don't bother. You're probably better off using traditional media. You're better off trying to do a radio spot or do a print, something else that'll give you that quick results, because social is more of a marathon. It takes a little longer. All right. So creating a social media marketing strategy. Now, strategy is incredibly important. How many people here are in marketing? When you're doing marketing, if you don't have some kind of strategy in place, it's probably destined to fail. You need to know where to move those chess pieces at all times, and you need to plan ahead several moves. You always have to be ahead of your consumers, basically, so that by the time they come around, you're already there for them. All right, so the calendar. Calendar is vitally important. When it comes to social, especially if you're on more than a couple of networks, it's vitally important to set up an iCal, an Outlook, whatever you want to do, because people have a tendency to forget where they are, where they need to post, when's the next thing. There's so many different things going on that creating a calendar helps tremendously. When we sit with clients, the ones that do have calendars set up get a lot more out of their social than the ones that don't, just simply because you know what days and times and everything else. And it also helps when you collect analytics. I'm a very analytical person. We're a very analytical company. You collect data and you look at your calendar and you find out that Mondays is not the best day for you to be posting, well, you switch it to another day and experiment there. Don't ever go by those stupid little things that I see on the internet all the time. The best day to post on Twitter is Tuesday between 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock. They're dumb. They're good in general when you're first starting out, but you make your own analytics, and we're actually going to get into analytics a little later. If you do not collect analytics, especially in social, you're not going to get the results against competitors who are doing it, because through analytics, that's when you know when the best day to post is. That's when you know when your audience is most receptive to your content. So this is a little secret sauce, giving you a little behind the scenes of how we actually develop strategies for our clients and such, all right? So this is basically the month one, okay? Now, why monthly actions? Monthly actions are because you have long-term goals as a business. I'll give you an example. In 2 months from now, you have a major trade show coming up, for example. Well, you need a monthly calendar because 2 months before that trade show, you better start producing some content on social, telling people you're going to be there, what's going to go on there. Hopefully, you'll increase attendees at that trade show. You have a new product launch in 3 months. Well, this is why the monthly calendar becomes into such importance, is because it's your long-term goals for what you're planning ahead for all the things that you need to do. So setting up a monthly calendar to start is very important. And you'll see immediate actions in the top left over there. Immediate actions, usually that's really just when you first create your calendar. That's all the branding. That's all like the little tidbit things that you need to do. You know, sometimes we come across companies and they have Facebook, a Twitter, a YouTube, and you go from one to the other, and you don't even know you're on the same company's channels, social networks, because they're not even branded. You go from one, and their Twitter background is the generic little flowery one with the little bird up in the corner up right here. And then they got this little tiny picture, and that's their only branding. Well, make the Twitter background. Go to YouTube. Make sure your YouTube has a complete background. Brand everything together. Tie everything together. So that's basically what the monthly does here. Then we get into what's called the weekly, and this is basically your daily calendar. This is like the Monday. We're going to make, that's when we have to do our Facebook posts. Tuesday's Twitter, and I'm not reading up what's up there, so if I'm completely wrong from what's up there, ignore me. But it's basically the day-by-day calendar of what needs to be done here. And what you want to do is you want to record basic analytics. Now, like I said, likes, follows, all this stuff is kind of meaningless. That bottom left corner is really just so you can bring to the president of the company or something like that to make them feel good, because most of the owners of the company have no clue what any of these numbers mean anyway. So it's a nice place to go. We got 30 more likes. Oh, cool, great, whatever. But it's a basic place to put some numbers on there. Okay, so basic practices for your content strategy. One of the things that we notice a lot is people will post something, for example, on Facebook, and they immediately tweet it out. They immediately post it a blog. They do everything in one shot. Now, if you think about content and the lifespan of content out in the digital world, if every piece of content only lasts, say, an hour, okay? On Twitter, it's like seconds. On Facebook, it could be a little bit more and stuff like that. If you dump all your content out in one shot, your content lives for 1 hour. If you stagger your content, each time you post that piece of content, it lasts for an hour. So now instead of dumping your content across every social network you own in one fell swoop and it living an hour, if you stagger it across 5, your content is actually living like 5 hours. So by staggering your content to different times and on different networks, you're actually extrapolating how long the content lives out there. The other thing is, it gets annoying to your users. If I'm following you on Twitter and I'm following you on Facebook and I'm doing all these different things, and all of a sudden we all carry these around, right? What happens if you dump everything out at one time? Someone's Twitter goes off, their Facebook goes off, all of a sudden they got 5 beeps and it's all the same crap from you, okay? So if you spread it out a little bit, at least you won't annoy them as much, because the human condition is, remember, the lifespan or how the attention span. If I get a beep now because you tweeted something, that's cool. If I get another beep 3 hours later, I probably forgot that it beeped the first time anyway. So you're actually not annoying people as much. Now, the other thing is, and I love auto post programs, don't get me wrong. I love Hootsuite, I love all these auto post programs, all these other things that automate, because automation does save a ton of time with this stuff. Problem is, people put the same exact language on every single post they make. What they don't understand is that the different audiences on the different social networks want to receive information a little differently. You know, Twitter, for example, is very succinct. It's a hashtag, it's a link. It's a very quick little sentence there of just information. Versus Facebook, which you can extrapolate a little bit more. Facebook's more like, I call it like a little mini blog. So you can write the language. On Facebook, it could be a little more fun, a little more frivolous, a little more open, a little more personality. Versus LinkedIn, where you're not going to be as fun and frivolous on Facebook, and you're not going to be as succinct as you are on LinkedIn, but you want to have the language of it be more of a thought leader or more professional. So the same piece of content that you would put out should maybe all point to the same thing, but it needs to be spoken about differently. And again, I'm not going to get into an example per se because so many different businesses have different things, but just keep in mind that whatever networks you're going to be on, you need to speak the language of that network. You okay? Okay, make sure. All right, so how to create compelling content. And, again, this is going to be depending on the business, because there's some companies we work with like a medical bill detective company who actually looks at surgery bills. It's hard to write compelling content for them, let me tell you. But, the best you can do here. Okay. Realistically, a good strategy for content, engaging, open-ended conversation, interesting. And Peter said it earlier, ask. Ask questions. Ask people what they want to hear. You want people's opinions. You want to open up dialogue. You want people to answer you. One of the biggest things in social that we talk about is statements kill conversation. If you're going to make a post where it's really just a statement, you'll get some responses, the shares, and it's very valuable and things like that. Of course, it's going to have a life of its own. But when you ask somebody an opinion, you ask somebody a question, their thoughts, how do you feel, what does it do? People want to respond to those things. So when you ask questions, you're opening up a dialogue for people to continue a conversation with you. If you're going to just make a statement, you're kind of almost stopping it unless it's really super valuable, important information. So ask questions. These are kind of like the checklists. You know, you just don't, he said it again earlier, you know, I like Peter a lot. He has a lot of great thoughts about, you know, what social is. He was a very broad scope, but a lot of things he spoke about are really, really inherently true on social today. Maybe not from a couple of years ago, but social today. But these are the kind of points that you want to kind of hit on. You know, having content and having a picture of a cat up there with the glasses that we saw like on Instagram and everything, it's cute and everything, but you're almost getting an audience that probably you don't really need for your business. It's another like on your thing. Someone shares that cute kitten picture. Who's going to like it? Well, probably one of the friends who likes cats, but really doesn't give a crap about what your business is. So when you share content about things that maybe kind of go too beyond of what would be valuable or interesting to the people who you are hoping are going to make a buying decision and things like that, it kind of just even waters down your audience a little too much. Content should dress up in a variety of clothing. Now, the exception would be like kind of LinkedIn. You know, LinkedIn, if you wear that suit, that clothes, the clown suit on LinkedIn, you're probably not going to get much out of it. But in general, for the most of the social networks and everything, you need to have a wide variety of the content you put out there. You know, Peter said it again. I keep quoting Peter because if he was sitting here, he'd just smack me eventually. He'd say, "Get your own shit." But the idea is you want to be a few different personalities in social. If you're going to just go down one lane and just be the guy on the right and you're the page, it's always fun. Again, great adventure or something, get away with the bottom, you know, the right-hand side. But for the other 99% of businesses and such like that, you need to mix it up. And what I mean by mixing it up is you need to be casual every once in a while. Hey, it's Friday. You know, what's everybody doing this weekend? And try and tie it into maybe your business. You know, like Sports Center or Shelton's one of our clients. So they'll write something about a Friday and then kind of mention they have something going on. Clothing manufacturers can do that. Almost every business can do a kind of a tie-in with like a kind of weekend thing. The middle guy right here is like I'm dressed right now, which I'm usually the guy on the far left, believe it or not, and occasionally that one over there. I'm actually rarely the guy in the middle, but Joan told me I had to dress up today for some reason, and no, I can't. But, you know, mixing it up like this and wearing different outfits so that your audience has several different ways to connect with you. Learning the culture of your company, things like that. That's the type of successful content that you want to do. All right, so how to measure and evaluate results, all right? Again, when you measure analytics on the social networks, what you're actually measuring is your content and how people react to it. In a simplified process, that's really all it is. Every single social network has analytics. Twitter doesn't have their own, but you can buy the outside. There's ones that you can get outside that do that. Same thing with, what was the other one? Pinterest, but you can use Pintix and there's some other analytics tools and such. But most of the social networks have them already built in. They're there for a reason. Analytics are there for a reason. Analytics measure your success or failure. Again, because you got 40 new likes on your Facebook page, it's meaningless. When you go into your back end and you start looking at analytics and you can start doing correlations and tie-ins between how the consumer went from point A to point B to an actual buying purchase, analytics is what kind of tells that story. And there's some really, these are all basic, but you can buy some robust analytics programs that actually can help you track from a conversation in LinkedIn on and on all the way to hopefully a buying purchase. Now, none of it's perfect. If they could create any kind of analytics that could actually track every single person from the point of origin of contact to where they actually bought something, you could probably buy Bermuda. Not a house in Bermuda, you could probably buy Bermuda. Because you would have such a magic formula that every single business owner in the world would give you a ton of money for. But in general, it gives you good correlations of where you spend time. And I'll give you an example. Well, I'll use this one first. analytics help you redefine strategy, all right? Your audience responds to your content. You understand social ROI, all these other elements right here. It can also tell you where the traffic came from. Again, and this helps with understanding usage of time. And this is a very basic example, but it's nice and easily spelled out. Stupid little cartoon on Pinterest, for example. We have a board on there that we call the Ha-Ha board on our Pinterest. And it's just goofy crap that we all come up with and throw up there once in a while. But you know, when you start tracking between what you do on one social network, and you look, this is a simple, anybody could do this. This is Facebook Insights, Pinterest, okay? You can see right there it's circled. From that one image, because we tracked it, we got 9 people coming to our page, okay? Now from there, we also have other analytics that will help us determine if that actually turned into a buying situation. But it basically gives you a time flow. Now, if we do this across the board, and again, this is just one example. If you track all the different things that you're doing out in the world on the different social networks, and you try and follow from point A to point B, and remember, time is of the essence, and you start finding out the things that you're doing on Pinterest aren't transferring over or moving people from one place to another place, you probably don't need to spend as much time there. You should probably cut back the amount of time you're there and increase the time somewhere else where you're watching the people come from. So it's a very basic idea right here, but it helps track where everything's coming from. So how to get the best return on investment with this stuff. Basic formula for ROI. And again, ROI isn't always dollars. Like for our B2B clients, it's rarely ever about money, because you honestly, if you're B2B, it's going to be hard for you to actually turn your social media usage into actual hard dollars versus B2C. But in general right here, it's a dollar investment in hardware. And what we mean by technical versus the software here, the hardware versus software. Hardware is all the things you have to do to build your presence. It's the Facebook page, it's the branding, the graphic designers. Facebook pages have apps. Your Google Plus pages, whatever you're doing outside in the world is all the hardware to get everything branded and all together. The software is actually the more expensive part. You know, the hardware, by the time you're all said and done, you could be under $2,000 is like a top price to get everything branded. Depends on your graphic design capabilities and all that stuff. Where it gets really expensive is the people, creating and curating content, responding, all that other stuff. But those are the basic 2 pieces. And then so the formula is basically kind of like this right here. Now, sales, of course, this is going to be geared more towards the B2C. This presentation was actually more towards B2C. But B2B is going to be a little differently like this, but that's a basic breakdown of how it actually funnels out. All right, so what do you use for ROI? Well, this is where the true power of social really comes into. Create and build personal relationships. People get to do business with people they know. There's no other form of advertising and marketing that I know of where really people get to know who your company is. And if you keep in mind that people do business with people they know, and you're allowing them to know you on social, you'll let the culture of the company come out and everything, they're probably going to stick with you. If it comes to a buying decision between a company they've connected with on social versus a company that they really aren't connected to, even if your product might be $1 or $2 more, they'll probably still buy from you because they have that personal connection. And that's why it's really important to build these relationships. And it's long-term continual engagement. You know, I used to be a huge email guy. I loved email marketing. When Constant Contact first came out years ago, I don't remember, it was like 78% open rates and all this other things, and email marketing was gold and everything else. We were getting huge returns on it. And of course now, you know, you're lucky if you get, you know, you heard, I'm not going to say his name, but you heard the open rates on it. And, you know, even our open rates, we're still at around like 20% of our open rates, because we only send out like an e-news like once a month and a half or so. So it's opened a little bit more. But there's really no other form where you have such long-term continual engagement. If someone's really invested in you on Facebook, for example, or Google Plus, or any of these other social networks, you kind of can get content in them and pound your company's name into their head on a continual long-term basis. And it's engagement over and over, so that you're really up in the forefront of their mind. Brand loyalty, cheerleaders, advocates, and this is the big one. We talked about transparency earlier. The hardest place to bullshit is on social. Simple as that. I can create a company website right now. I can do a print advertising. I could do a lot of different media right now. to make you think that I am bigger than Pilot Pen right now if I wanted to. There's that. And when I said that synergy a little earlier, the trust factor, social weighs very heavily in people's trust because a lot of it is what other people are talking about your business, not what you're talking about your business. So it really is very powerful. Just do it. You know, a lot of companies say, well, how should we jump into social? Start. I mean, you know, do the parameters we said a little earlier like that. Set yourself up. Do it the right way. You know, you don't want to just start collecting likes and things just for the fact of collecting likes. If you start organized and you start off your social campaign doing it the right way, you'll find a lot more success in the end. And lastly, the best and worst practices right here. Show interest and listen to others. You know, I almost say sometimes social is everything I need to know about how to communicate on social networks I learned in kindergarten kind of thing, because really that's what it comes down to. And the bottom one to me is, like, I've been in ad marketing over 20 years. This is the most fun I've ever had. This is when I sit down with companies and we really get their social going, they have a lot of fun too. It's not stodgy anymore. You don't have to have that always corporate look. It's a way for you to communicate and have a little fun and a little bit of culture at your company, especially the youth. You know, I have 2 teen daughters and they don't trust companies. They just don't. They don't care what the companies say about it. They care about how everybody reacts to the things the companies say and the interaction between everything. And that's really where it's very powerful. Captain Kirk's my favorite. I'm sorry I can't hear you over the sound of how awesome I am. Woo! You're not. You're awesome to a degree, and some of your clients might think you're awesome, but don't just use I. It's a we. I still find myself using I sometimes because I am kind of a conceited jerk sometimes, and I talk a lot and all this other stuff, so I still use I. But try and get out of that habit. It's really, you want to talk about the company culture, things like that. Don't talk about yourself continually. And remember I said auto post programs, don't use them poorly. This is actually an old screenshot, but I should probably update it. But you know, there's this one company on Facebook who they just pushed all their tweets to Facebook. And they were actually, in the beginning, when I went back a little earlier, it was working a little because people are actually responding to it, but he never kept going to his Facebook page to look at the conversations because he was so reliant on an auto program that he never actually humanized it. He never went beyond the auto post program to actually see the conversations and get involved in them, which is incredibly important. You have to get involved in these conversations. So that was a really poor usage of auto programs. Auto programs are great, but use them the right way, and don't forget to be a human being. That's the problem with a lot of social and automation is people forget it's a human element. And if you're not going to connect as humans, don't bother doing social. Simple as that. It's not going to replace a lot of things that you think it is. You still have to be a human being. And that's it. And again, this is going to be available on slideshare.net/talkingfinger. Any question about social media at all? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I hear this one all the time in social media. The best way for responding to negative posts or competitors sabotaging your social media, if businesses worry about that and say, well, I don't really want to dabble in it because I may be sabotaged.
Those are 2 different things. Negative posts and everything. Let's put it this way. There is not a company in the world that doesn't make mistakes. We've made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. It's part of being human. You never want to delete somebody coming to your Facebook page, for an example, and say, I'll give you an example, a dentist office. Hey, I went in there, you really hurt my teeth, blah, 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 like that. What's the worst thing you could do is delete it. Because if you have an audience that's engaged with you, and the hope is that you do have an engaged audience, not just like an audience that's there to be there, they're going to see that post anyway. And what happens? You delete it. It's not transparent anymore. You've just deleted it. Now you've opened up the door for everybody to wonder what's really going on in that office, for example. If the office comes to it and says, we apologize, let's talk about it, here's the phone number, give us a call immediately and we'll go over it. What have you just done? First of all, you've killed the negative response. Peter shouldn't have been here this morning because he stole a lot of things that we were talking about. You know, you kind of nipped it in the bud right there by responding. When people complain, all they want to do is be heard. What everybody else wants to know about that complaint is that the owner addressed it. By addressing the complaint, you've immediately kind of squashed it. You've actually probably turned it into a 180 because now everybody else goes, wow, they really listen to their people and they turn around. A competitor that does that, yeah, that's a delete. I mean, you know, if someone's going to come onto our page and say, hey, you know, I'm from XYZ social media marketing company and you guys suck. I'm going to delete it. I mean, I'm not going to leave it up there because it's moronic. But if someone has a valid complaint, you leave it up there. Don't be afraid of negative comments. They happen anyway. You can't stop negative comments. The difference is with social and these kind of things is you get to address it. You get to hear it. What if there was no social, or what if you didn't get to hear it? Word spreads quickly. All someone's got to do is go to their Facebook page. If you're not monitoring it, or if you're not giving a place for those people to complain, they're going to complain anyway, and you have no way to know or address it. Simple as that. Did that answer it for the most part there? Yeah.
How is social networking beneficial to a wholesaler in an industry where the retailers struggle to keep up with technology?
Say that one more time.
How is social networking beneficial to a wholesaler where the retailer that they're selling to struggles to keep up with technology? Is it worth doing?
That one I'd honestly have to think about.
Okay.
Why don't you shoot me an email, or what I'd rather you do, if you don't mind, post it right on our Facebook wall.
Okay.
And I can answer it right there later on when we get in office. Let me think about that one a little bit more, because there's probably different ways that we can handle that. Because that sounds like there's a couple of different parts, and I'd have to familiarize myself a little bit more with that. Post it right on our Facebook wall, and I'll answer you by tonight.
Okay.
Anybody else? Yeah.
My team here, we run a nonprofit, and we have tried to ask engaging questions to engage people on our Facebook page, but we're not really seeing that that much engagement. How do you think we should go about increasing engagement on our page?
Okay. That's going to be two parts. One is, where did you get the audience from to begin with? How did you target? How did you let people know about your Facebook page? Was it a warm market with just friends and family kind of thing, or did you target how to get those likes to your Facebook page? Because inherently, a lot of times with a lack of engagement is that the audience that's coming there, or that was invited there, or is connecting with it, isn't really per se interested in the overall business or prolonging a conversation. So the first part I would ask you is, how did those people find your page and get to it and everything else? Secondly, it's long term. Content is one of those things that through analytics and a couple of other different parameters, you start understanding what they want to hear. You can ask them. Like post up on your page something about, hey guys, what do you guys want to talk about? Very general like that. You'd have to, sit down and think a bit about what you want to ask them. But I would say the long-term content, especially for nonprofit, because we do work with a bunch of nonprofits. Nonprofits need to be a little more fun, frivolous-y kind of thing, because it's a very heartfelt thing when somebody's going to make a donation and they connect to a nonprofit. It really comes from here. Oh, well, it does. It comes from your heart. It's very heartfelt. So the idea is you want to speak to them in that kind of tone, things that they want to hear. The other thing is content like that, you want to help other charities or nonprofits as well. So finding a couple of the nonprofits that you can connect with and help each other, it's social. So social isn't a very isolated piece. If you can even connect with other nonprofits, you guys could really have a lot of cross-content to where you're posting about something that's similar as a nonprofit that they can connect to as well. Again, you know what, if you want to post on our Facebook page, I can actually throw you a bunch of ideas, because I need to understand what the nonprofit is to help you kind of with the content, which should be. Yeah?
It's more of what you were just talking about. What do you consider to be the best gauge for a client of whether or not their social media is working?
It depends on what the goals are. What the goals are is first and foremost, if it's advocacy, things like that. And it would work based on what the goals were and how we met those goals. For example, if it's advocacy, then I'm hoping that it would be a lot of people engaging and almost being rah-rah. I don't want to say like a multi-level marketing kind of rah-rah, but it would be kind of along those lines. B2B, if it's going to be dollars, forget it, because you're probably not going to actually make any hard cash from it. But in that case, it would be brand advocacy. And in that case, I would want to see a lot of sharing of my content in that respect, things like that. So realistically, understanding the success of it is to understand what the goals were and have we met those goals. And a lot of time, it could be through analytics and things like that.
Hey, Bill, what
Yeah.
should be posting for your organization? A lot of times they want to assign it to an intern.
Right.
They don't know the business that well. who should be posting content?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and we do get asked that. Please don't use interns to handle your social media. I love interns. We have interns and everything else like that. And I let them use our Facebook page every once in a while just to post some kind of minutia or the funny cat picture kind of thing. Realistically, someone who within your organization or company has a good personality, someone who understands the culture of your company. Don't forget, because of social is such the humanization of a business, the person who's posting your content should understand what your business is, the culture of that business, and be able to speak about it in human terms back and forth with another person on a level basis. Interns are great if you want to use them as the auto post program instead of Hootsuite, where you kind of write the content and give it to them. But internally, realistically, the best content comes from within the company itself. I love content writers. Content writers are awesome to fill in all the gaps between, because some companies just can't come up with content, or they're not very good writers. I'm actually not the best writer in the world either. I hand all my stuff off to everybody else to actually read before I do anything with it. But within the company is the best place. And if you're going to use a content writer, have that content writer really understand the culture of the company and everything else. Does that kind of answer it? We have any other questions at all? Good. All right. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of the day.
All right.
Thanks.
Good job.
All right. Good.